Could your fertility still be reacting to school stress even decades later? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Dr. Anjali, and if you're trying to conceive or regulate your body after years of high stress, this episode might surprise you. Because school stress, the kind that we picked up as kids, doesn't stay in the classroom. For many women over 35, it still lives in the nervous system. And it's often behind the invisible stress loops that we carry into adulthood, into parenthood, and even into the way that we try to conceive. Performance doesn't equal safety because as kids, many of us learned that good grades meant approval, productivity resulted in worth, and being quiet was being good. And these patterns may have helped us survive, but they can also wire our nervous systems for hypervigilance, perfectionism, and chronic cortisol being raised. And when your cortisol is high, your body deprioritizes fertility. Why? Because it doesn't feel safe enough to bring in new life. This is why a lot of times when people go on vacation, they get pregnant because their vigilance, perfectionism, and chronic cortisol being raised. And when your cortisol is high, your body deprioritizes fertility. Why? Because it doesn't feel safe enough to bring in new life. So this is why a lot of times when people go on vacation, they get pregnant because their cortisol levels are allowed to then drop as they are feeling relaxed and their nervous system is feeling better regulated. Now, while we can't be on vacation all the time, let's talk about some of the signs of stored academic stress. So you may still carry those old school stress patterns if you tend to feel anxious unless everything's planned or perfect. I'm a recovering perfectionist myself, but in the idea that you can't relax unless there's some kind of guilt associated with it, right? Or if you feel fear, failure, or disapproval of any kind. Or for a lot of people, it's getting stuck in the freeze state or the burnout cycles, right? Where you're just numb and you can't move forward because your sympathetic nervous system is in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. You're stuck in the freeze mode. You just essentially have to play dead just so your body can get through life. Or if you perhaps struggle with hormone imbalance, like long cycles, or if you're having poor implantation. Does any of this sound familiar? So, what can you do about it? Because the goal isn't to erase your past, it's actually to re regulate your nervous system in the present so that your body feels safe enough to rest, digest, and conceive, right? Typically, we talk about parasympathetic state as being the rest and digest state, but it's also the conception state because that's when things can focus on the core of our body. In that sympathetic response, all resources are getting sent to our extremities, to our brain, so that we can fight, flight, get the heck out of there, or so that we can stay frozen in place. Or we can go into the fawn response of trying to please others. But the parasympathetic state of being able to rest and digest, having our breath be regulated, having our heart rate be regulated, having our lungs be better regulated, having all of the core function, our digestion, our reproduction, when we're in survival mode of running from the theoretical bear or whatever the stress response might be or the stress trigger might be, when we're in that stress survival mode, our body is not thinking about digesting our food. It's not thinking about trying to procreate or any of that, right? That's all on the back burner. But if we live in that chronic stress state, then when is our body going to digest? When is it going to reproduce? When is it going to have resources available for our core functions? So I'd like you to try this 3-part reflection exercise. Part 1 is to think about what are the messages that you grew up with around success or failure. Part 2 is what does your body feel like when you're overwhelmed? Do you feel like a physical sensation in your body? Does it feel like you have shortness of breath? What does that feel like for you when you're feeling overwhelmed? And then number 3 of this reflection exercise is what new safety cues would you want your future child to grow up with? So, thinking about it for your future child's perspective, can help us regulate our own nervous system because it can feel like I'm thinking about this for somebody else, and that can bring that calmness and stillness to our body. And these might seem like mindset questions, but they're actually nervous system reset prompts because your stress didn't start with you, but your healing can. I invite you to download the Stress to Strength guide and turn school stress into safety for you and your future family. The link is below, and I'll see you next week for a conversation about all things sleep, whether it's your labs, symptoms, and why quote unquote normal isn't always optimal. See you next week.